Hello, everybody, and welcome back to video number 28 in this series. I've been preparing lecture notes for a summer camp I'm teaching for high schoolers. And even though my plan is actually very loosely put together, I just had a list of things to do. And in general, I was kind of making these up as I went along. I was shooting for 28 videos, and we are just now ready to animate the cutscene. We still have to get our major game action and the levels together for that, but we need our character to run around and beat up aliens. We still have to animate the cutscene, have our character run around that level, and bring aliens into this level so our character can hit them, and then do a boss fight minimum. So I've still got a few videos. What's the debugger doing? I'm not sure what the debugger's doing there. Uh, I'll get that out of the way. And so a little bit longer than I planned, but I'll go ahead and finish out the videos and try to get at least a completed rough draft of the game. So in the last video, we set things up for our cutscene. If we run that, we can see here the alien ship's coming in. So the character's out here fishing, and there's a little animation that goes with this. And after a few seconds, the character's going to look up at the sky, and then the camera will slowly pan up there and see the alien ship, then pan back down to the camera or back down to the character. And then there's an animation where he's going to turn and look down at this stick sitting beside him. And then the action for the game, uh, we come up with a storyline a couple of videos ago. The action is the character's going to run around beating up aliens with a stick, uh, which kind of it brings in a nice spot for either comic relief, where we could have like maybe a homestead for the character and he keeps running back there and grabbing different items from his tool shed to beat up the aliens with, uh, or keep with the stick and then just add some super fancy animations that seem like they belong in the best quality fighting games and way out of place for something like this. But a little bit of comic relief that way, or maybe even a paywall with the homestead thing. Um, the game's free, and then you pay $1 or $2 for new items you can beat up aliens with. Like instead of a stick, a frying pan or a rubber chicken or all sorts of things that would make it enjoyable and uh, maybe bring in a few dollars on a game. So remember, if you're interested in game development, you want to look into things like that. I'm thinking if this goes further, I'll probably go with the comic relief of doing some super fancy animations that look like they belong in highly advanced fighting games and just way out of place of a character beating up aliens with a stick. So let's get started animating our cutscene here. As I just described, most of the animations are already built into the character model. So let's go in here and make sure they imported correctly. So we got everything. We got our fishing animation, and that needs to loop linearly. Then notice the ship, he's just going to look up and then stop at the last frame. So he's staring at the ship for a minute, so no looping there. And notice the stick, he's going to look back down at the stick. So no need to loop there. And re-import that with the animations. And then on our character, if we right click and go to uh, editable children, we'll be able to get to all the different parts, including the animation player, so that we can load those into an animation tree. So that's the next thing we need. And something we saw earlier, so nothing new here. We had to create an animation tree for our basic level of the game. And an animation tree is a uh, a state transition machines. Is ones that we have in all of our major game engines. So that's what I chose to go with here. A new animation node state machine. And we just define our transitions. So we'll need to access that character animations, which are in the animation player that imported with it. Hopefully this is all review. And then we can add those animations. So we're going to start with the fishing, which is just going to loop through very slowly. Oh, I have to set this to active so we can see it. There we go. So he's just standing around fishing. And then before long, he'll notice the ship and turn and look up there. and the camera will slowly pan up and also see that, and then afterwards the character will look back down at the stick, and then after a second or two, we'll jump to the next scene to start our animation. So we need some transitions. So from the start, we'll move to the fishing animation. And that's just going to happen automatically. We don't have to worry about any conditions or anything. As soon as we hit the start state, go to the fishing animation. And then from the fishing animation, we will move to the notice the ship animation when the notice ship condition turns true. We saw earlier how we can access this Boolean from our code. And then we'll translate to the notice stick animation whenever the notice stick Boolean becomes true. And notice ship one will turn false at that time. Let's check real quick. This is, if we look at our animation, that was set to be looping when we brought it in, and these other two are just one-shot animations, so that should be good. So to control those and then to pan the camera, we'll need a timer to do everything. So I'm going to add a timer. And I think one timer will be enough for this. I think one timer, and it'll just start counting down. It starts with a certain wait time, then we'll go down. It will be a one-shot timer. Actually, I'm going to do a timer in the script. Instead of doing it here, I have a place where I can do a timer in the scene later. I'm just going to do the timer right in the script. So we're ready to start scripting this. So I'm going to come up to the parent node and the root of the scene or the level, the root of the cutscene, I should use that word, and add a script to this. So just a basic script, default script, inherits from the basic node properties, and I'll come over here and store that in the scripts folder. Intro cutscene, that's a good name for it. Create that, and we have our script ready to go. I'm going to get the comments out of the way because those are just kind of clutter. We talked about the basic aspect of what these starting points are. The function that runs one time when everything starts, and then the function that runs over and over and over again for every frame. We actually won't need this one this time. We'll set everything up as, we'll have the timer call independent functions each time. And the reason I decided to come over here and do it in the script is I think I'll do 4 timers instead of just one to keep everything straight. So I'm going to make several timers. They're going to be local to our script, so we don't need to export them or anything. So first off, there's a fishing timer, and that's going to be timer sort of data, and we'll assign it this timer object dot new. That's the syntax for a new timer in Godot. Logically, it's the same in all our game engines to create a new timer, and what would change is the syntax for creating a new one, depending on the language we're in. So after finishing it, I'll do a ship timer and just follow all those animations. Then a notice stick timer. Oh, maybe one more. Back to character timer, and then a notice the stick timer, and then a end timer. So just wait for a second or two at the end. All right, so there's all our timers, and I'll just set them up one at a time. First off, we have to get ready to initialize each one, and I'll do the fishing timer first. So our fishing timer, we want to connect it to something. So we're going to connect it so that when the timer's timeout happens, That's just a built into the timer. We'll get, say it's like a 3 second timer. So it's going to count down for 3 seconds and then hit its internal timeout function. And then what method do we want to call when it does it? Um, so I'm going to switch to the notice ship animation or notice ship method. And I'll come down here and create a new method for that. So function notice ship. And for now, I'm just going to pass on that. And we'll fill out the rest. We'll come back and fill that in a moment, possibly the next video. So the fishing timer's going to run for a couple seconds. So we need to set up how long. So fishing timer dot wait time. 3 seconds sounds good. And fishing timer dot one shot equals true. We only want it to run once, and then this notice ship one is going to start the next timer. Change the animations, and then start the next timer. What else do we need? I think I'm ready to connect it. So to actually load it into the scene, then we do add child the fishing timer. So now this makes it part of our scene itself. And then we can say fishing timer dot start. And that will get it running. So this should move for 3 seconds and then jump down here. And this will do basically the same thing, only with a different timer. So we'll have the notice ship timer, which is going to call the back to character method. Let me spell that correctly. Oh, let me add timer on this one so so that I don't get confused. The computer would never get confused between them. And we'll need to create that back to character function. Function back to character. And hopefully you already see a pattern here. I'll paste that in. It's going to be a one-shot thing. We'll add it to the scene and then we'll start it. And before we do, we can also remove that old timer. Remove child fishing timer. And there's one more thing we want to do when this starts, and that's we want to run our other animation. And we saw how to do that earlier. So we'll go to our animation player. Oh, not the animation player, the animation tree. And we need to switch this Boolean on this transition. Notice ship Boolean needs to become true at this point. And we can grab that if we select it in the hierarchy. Under parameters in the inspector, there's conditions. And I think if I click and hold control and drag that in, it will do the same thing. Oh, that just brings in the name of this. That is a string. But we saw earlier in an earlier video the animation tree, which we'll need a reference to that. So I'm going to click and hold control and drag that in. And that gives us a reference to that called animation tree. We saw earlier that that's actually a dictionary. So then this file looks like a file path here is the key to the dictionary key that leads to that parameter. So we'll set that to true. And then that should run the animation. And I guess we're up to the point we can give it the first test here. If I run that, what happens? So it starts, our character looks up. He looked up awful quick. That didn't seem like 3 seconds to me. Let me make that a much bigger number to see if something went wrong there. So 12 seconds. Oh, Whoops, that's why. That doesn't go in the ready method. That goes after we notice the ship. Let me try that and give it a run. So 3 seconds is probably good there. So he's fishing and fishing and fishing. Then he notices the ship. And then our camera is going to pan up. Then the camera will pan back down. And then the character is going to notice the stick. But it looks like we're coming on 15 minutes. So I'll do that. I'll do the rest of it in the next video. But hopefully you see a pattern and can already predict what's going to happen in the next video. See you then.